Hello. So straight into day 3. I don't know why it says we're 54 seconds in already. Maybe I've just been recording that whole lot. Maybe not. Anyway, so Turners or the JLT. What do you know it as? The Juicens?
Yeah, although no, I've
And you knew, wasn't
played
it?
so often. I think I tend to keep up to speed with the new names for this one, but I can't get past the RSA. I never can.
Yeah, fair play. So who wins the Turners?
Turners is
No, not who wins. That's not the question.
well, it's not.
Turners.
It's both an easy one and a tricky one, isn't it? Because the Turners is another one of those races that's really dominated by Willie Mullins and Gordon Elliott. So you really want the Willie Mullins and Gordon Elliott horses on board, but you then have that real challenge about which horses go where. For what it's worth, the two that I'm more confident on coming here and also probably more likely to be the winners of this race are Sir Gerard and Three Stripe Life. I think Three Stripe Life is going to be a really decent novice chase this season. I think he's built for the job. He's no longer a head case because he was a bit nutty. He's settling down now, and he just seems to be improving. So Gerard is a nice horse. I know some people knock him because a punches down, but that same thing's happened 2 years running, hasn't it? So. And he's been pretty good the rest of the season, both seasons. So I'm not too concerned about that. He seems to save his best for Cheltenham, really. Yeah. So it's hard to see Willie taking him back down in trip. It would feel a bit unnecessary, I think. You can't say never. This is Willie Mullins we're talking about, but it would feel unlikely, I think. It would seem unlikely that Three Stripe Life goes up from 2 mile novice hurdle into 3 mile chasing. But he does feel as though he needs further. So the intermediate trip seems really obvious. So there'd be the two that I'll be building my book around. There are others that you could throw into the mix, but you'd be less confident of. Horses like Dysart Dynamo again could go up in trip. I think until he settles, that wouldn't be a consideration anyway. He's a bit of a tearaway, so I think that's less likely. Of the Nice Guy and Manila Cancuna, we talked about the Brown Advisory before. I can't see the Nice Guy coming back in trip. I think if one did, it would be more likely Manila Cancuna. But I think probably both will stay up. Appreciate It, we've talked about, could come here. James de Burley would be interesting, actually.
Yeah, just got him out.
I think he's probably the one that I would be tempted to back. You just want to see an entry, really. And another one of Gordon Elliott's that I think is interesting that people won't have thought of, won't have considered, that I think will make a really nice novice chaser, and that's Saint Felician. I think most people will have seen that or felt that he was a bit of a letdown last season with the tour reputation that he had. But I think it was all about this season. It wasn't about last season with him. We know he's a really, really good horse. You've only got to look at what he did in France, and he may well have been one of those horses that Gordon just couldn't get quite right all season. That's just acclimatised, and this will be his season. But I'm actually really interested to see how he performs and how he comes out, and I see him as being a horse for the intermediate trip too.
Okay, that's an interesting one because he definitely lost his sexy profile. So that's why he's 33. I thought you were going to say Quilixios, actually.
Quilixios, I just want to understand what the campaign is with him. He's a tricky one. He's a horse that will interest me this season, but I can't back him anti-post yet.
Yeah, okay. And we have mentioned Journey with Me before.
I think Journey with Me will go up in trip. I just, with what happened last season, everybody really believing that it should be over 3 miles. Everything, your eyes don't normally deceive you, do they?
No. There's some interesting Bear Gills, 50s.
Yeah, well, he was a horse I backed for the Ballymore, and I was on really early for him, Nicky Martin's horse. But again, I know he's back fit and well, but I just want to see him on a racecourse first. Yeah. He's one of those that will shorten the 50s.
Yeah,
because he's definitely a talented horse, and there aren't a whole lot of horses in the UK to oppose him with.
Yeah.
So he's less risky in the respect that I'd be confident that his price is going to shorten.
He's one of those that you definitely can wait for an entry declaration.
I'd like to see him running, that nice 2.5 mile chase at the international meeting in December.
Yeah,
that's what I'd like to see him run. I'd like to see him running that race specifically.
And got to mention Kilcrut.
Yeah,
is he going chasing?
Look, I genuinely don't know. I will have read about him in one of the books, but I don't know off the top of my head. And he's one that I've still got the jury out with in terms of ability and where he would be placed.
Yeah, fair enough. Okie dokie.
He might be one that I'd actually just stick in the stairs, skip over hurdles, stick in the stairs with Classical Dream.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, so the Ryanair. So this, I don't know if I would bother with a book for this because I just can only see one winner.
Yeah, well, I've spent the summer rolling Allaho up to quite a large position, as you'd expect me to do. I do think you need to make a book though this time.
He might go
he's a year older. He's not the kind of year older where you'd be saying he misses trends and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But he's an early starting French horse, and it catches up with them at some point. So there is the risk of that, and there is just something I picked up about them maybe campaigning him slightly differently this year, and maybe taking him that 3 mile chase at somewhere along the line. I'm not keen on changing things around like that. You then put a horse up to 3 miles. Sometimes they just lose that bit of speed.
Yeah, I think for me, it will be a case of I hardly ever make a book for the Ryanair because no horse is targeted at it unless they are, like when Min was quite clear Min was going to be and when Underso was going to be.
Yeah.
And the race will just end up with horses that either weren't good enough or not staying Gold Cup trip, or there'll be some coming in from the 2 mile division that aren't quite fast enough. And it's too hard to know. I think it's the hardest anti-post championship race, which is quite obvious. It's not a championship race, actually, but it's the hardest of those big races that we grouped together. And there's nothing there. Like if Allaho wasn't running, Galpin de Champs I don't think will run. Shishkin I don't think will run. Chacun Passoir won't run. Gentleman de Me. So you're at Fernie Hollow at 14 who's come up. There's just nothing there. Maybe if someone does have a look at this and they've got this something they're pretty sure will run and let me know and things. But like Fakir, who they really weren't even sure this year that they'd run, even when it was they thought about skipping for Aintree. I mean, 25s isn't awful for him. Bob Ollinger, 25s maybe. I suppose if he's not got galloping. Yeah,
the jury's out with Bob Ollinger. You can look at horses like Janadel. Conflated, I think, would be very interesting coming back in trip. Conflated would be one that would interest me. I think giving him that sort of prominent run, David Russell, going at it, get him, not letting Allaho have his own way. I think he'd be one that would interest me.
Yeah, I did. I fancied it last year for it. I think Janadil 33 isn't bad. It's ones where you just in no rush, are you? I suppose there are a few there that'll probably add it.
That's it. You hit the nail right on the head. You're in no rush. It's a market dominated by one horse. You've got to find a way of getting them on side. Otherwise, you're not even playing the race, are you? So we've got to try and get him on side with a few roll-ups over the next couple of months, so you can get some kind of position on him, and then start thinking about what you want to back up with.
Yeah, Shan Blue 50-1. You liked him at one point for it, didn't you?
Yeah, although I think he's just short of that ability, if I'm really honest.
Okay, Stayers.
Stayers is a tough old race, actually. Everybody's going to be Flooring Porter. I get that. And you have to, again, have him on side. I think Willie got it wrong, actually, unusually got it wrong with Classical Dream last year, and I think I'd be inclined to give him another chance. So I think his odds are probably too big. Blazing Coal would be interesting if he's confirmed over hurdles. I think they have said that that's what they're doing. I'd like to see an entry. Sama here, they've said, is going to have a 3 mile campaign.
Both 20.
Yeah, he's a decent price. Vanillier, I think, can't jump a fence, so I wouldn't be surprised to see Vanillier being targeted at this. Marie's Rock, I mentioned. I think there was talk about her going up in trip rather than Epitante and Marie's Rock take each other on in the stairs. So I'm sure Nikki Hensel would try her up in trip and see how that goes at some point in the season. Devil's Coachman would be interesting, but I think he could be ground dependent. I think he's a nice price if it came up on the soft side. I think he'd be interesting, but he's not a massive anti-post proposition necessarily, because I think there's a risk that he doesn't go there at all. There are a couple three actually that really interest me at bigger prices, and this is perhaps less about book building now and really sort of talking, thinking outside the box of the race. Langadan is a horse I know for obvious reasons with having Jeffries Cross at Dan's stables. I think he's a really, really nice horse. I don't think people perhaps realise just how good he is. I think he is a Grade 1 horse. Dan, I think, is going to run him, start him out at 2.5. We'll probably have a couple of runs over 2.5, and then I'll test the water over 3, probably in the new year. And if he runs well enough over 3, then I think it'd be all systems go for the stairs for him. I think he's a big price, and I know he's going to be campaigning with that in mind, by the way. So I think he's one that you could put in your book.
Like in the Cleve Hurdle, do you think?
That, or what's the race at Newbury?
Long Walk.
Yeah, the Long Walk. I think it's more likely to be stepped up and trip for the Long Walk. A couple of others that I'm going to throw into the mix. Might I is one that I'm going to throw in the mix of Harry Fry's. And we know Harry Fry knows his way around a staying hurdler. And I think Might I is one of those that I think is going to really benefit from stepping up in trip. I think he could be really useful. And one massive curveball that nobody's ever going to agree with me, and this is one that you're probably going to take the piss out of me for all season, Kev, and that's Sporting John.
I like Sporting John.
I think he's got a really nice profile for the stayers, actually. If I take you back to the qualifier at Warwick last year, the potential qualifier at Warwick, he beat Third Wind and Cider Burley, giving a load of weight away. Comes out much the best at the weights. Third Wind won the Potemps this year in the same fashion that Cider Burley did the year before. And this is all fairly tenuous, and you can rip holes in this all you like, but it's fairly tenuous. But Cider Burley went on to run a really big race in the Stayers the following season. I think Sporting John potentially could run, and I know Sporting John didn't run in the Potemps final in the end, but I think Sporting John could run a big race in the Stayers hurdle. I think it's probably 40 to 1, or might be a share of 50s in places. I'm not sure.
40 to 1 is there. Yeah.
Not many people are going to be rushing to back him. I get it and understand it, but
fair enough.
I like him.
Like I say, we're not nailing our selections to the mast at this stage, are we? Obviously,
no, not at all. Needless to say, just in terms of the race itself, the two that you want on side are Florian Porter and Classical Dream for your book. Florian Porter is the kind of price where you might be thinking about roll-ups now. Classical Dream, I think, is probably overpriced. The others you're watching and slotting into your book as the season progresses, I think.
Yeah. Interesting about Langadan as well. We'll see where.
Langadan I have already backed, by the way. He's in my book.
Perfect. Okay. We're not doing the handicap. So it's a novice, mares, novice, Lucia. I had a little catch up with Scooby the other day because I like to speak to him about anything French and female coming over, and he was just like, "Oh, I bet this one's already done." He mentioned that Lucia at 10 to 1, but he was just like, "It's too short for now." But I don't know.
I don't want Lucia actually. I'm not sure I agree with Scooby for that.
No, he's not building the book though. He'd just be his one selection. So
that's true. That's fair enough. I would want her on side. I think she's a really smart mare.
I don't know anything about her yet.
There's a few for this that I'm going to mention.
Okay.
Again, this is sort of personal choice thing. I'm quite happy to build books on big price horses, so I'm going to throw a bunch of names out to watch out for this season, really, rather than going and backing straight away. So Between Waters is one that I think you want to be looking at. Night and Day. There's one of Henry de Bromhead's that I really like that they put away last season that I think could be really smart. They've kept her for this season, actually, give her a season off, but I know they like her a lot. It's a horse called Foxy Girl. We've got Coup Shaver, we've got Glory, Deeply Superficial. They'd be the ones that I'd focus on. There are a couple of others that I'm looking at the moment. I haven't really sort of done the thoughts on, but worth just sticking in trackers. One's called Lot of Joy, and the other one is Smiling Getaway. So they're more tracker horses, really.
No price for Smiling Getaway yet. Yeah. Okay. Brilliant.
But building a big book on a mare's novice at this time of the year is not exactly the smartest thing in the world to do.
No, it's and it's not been. It's still a fairly new race, isn't it? As well, in terms of looking for what kind of horse wins. Obviously, starting point, as with most, is Willie Mullins, but it's not been as dominant as maybe people would assume. He's won it with some big price ones and things, so it's one where you can sort of get behind a couple, can't you? But yeah, definitely, yeah.
Yeah, look again. You look at that race and you immediately think Willie Mullins. You think about Nicky Henderson. But you've also got to think about Henry de Bromhead and Kenny Alexander, haven't you? You had done pretty well in that race as well.
Yeah. Have they got one in there? Who's a horse with no name?
It's Foxy Girl might be Kenny Alexander's. I think I could be wrong about that. Foxy Girl's definitely with Henry de Bromhead. Yeah. But I wouldn't swear that she's with Kenny Alexander. I'm not sure she's necessarily registered on the Racing Post website, so you might not pick it up.
No, still with David Cotton at the moment.
Yeah.
Okay. Bro, is that? Well, yeah, it'll be the Kim Muir last race, isn't it, on Thursday? So we're done.
Yeah, definitely not putting anything up for that at this stage.
No, fair play. Okay, right. I'll see you in a sec.
Will do.
Bye, everyone. Miss you already.